Most people know that protein is composed of units called amino acids. What is essential in human nutrition and for purposes of building more muscle is not protein but actual amino acids. When you consume a protein food such as meat, fish, eggs, or vegetable source of protein, it goes through a digestive process in the gut. Eventually, it's converted. The process of protein digestion begins in the stomach with the production of polypeptides, which are long chains of amino acids. They progress down into the intestine, where enzymes work on the polypeptides, break them into smaller chains, and eventually amino acids. Proteins are so the elemental form of protein are amino acids. There's 22 amino acids, 9 are essential. Now, it's important to know that for purposes of building more muscle, you have to have all 9 amino acids have to be present at the same time. In other words, if you eat a food that's lacking in one of the 9 essential amino acids, the protein won't be used. What will happen is most of the protein will be oxidized. Some of it might be used because they have something called a amino acid pool in the gut, and some of it might still be utilized. But generally speaking, all 9 essential amino acids have to be present for muscle protein synthesis to occur. Now, you probably heard of some of the essential amino acids are a little bit more famous than others. The branched chain amino acids are essential amino acids. They consist of leucine, isoleucine, and valine, and there's many others. Now, there are certain times when you want to take individual amino acids for certain purposes or certain goals. The problem with the amino acids is that for them to get absorbed, they have substances called amino acid uptake proteins, which work with certain amino acids to promote their uptake into the body. And unfortunately, a lot of these amino acids compete with each other. If you have, for example, like you have the larger structure amino acids, such as the branched chain amino acids, they will compete with a smaller amino acid, such as tryptophan, for entry into the body. They'll compete for those carriers, and because of their size, it's almost like a bully. The big branched chain amino acids will knock off the tryptophan, and the tryptophan won't be absorbed as well. But the good news is that tryptophan is unique among amino acids because it has its own absorption pathway. In other words, if you take for example, if you take carbohydrates, what will happen is that the carbohydrates will push the circulating amino acids into the tissues, into the muscle. But what will happen is it'll leave more of the tryptophan in the blood to be absorbed. So, for example, in other words, eating carbohydrates will increase tryptophan absorption. Now, tryptophan is one of the more famous amino acids. It has a lot of uses in the body. In this video, I wanted to discuss a new, what they call meta-analysis of the effects of tryptophan in relation to cardiovascular disease. It turns out that not getting a sufficient amount of tryptophan, which can be caused by, for example, eating too much of the other amino acids, not enough tryptophan, or focusing on foods or supplements that are completely deficient in tryptophan. To give you an example of that, the popular collagen proteins, gelatin or collagen proteins, they have a pretty good amount of amino acids, save for one. They're almost completely devoid of tryptophan. So this is the reason why collagen supplements, they might be useful in helping to build connective tissue. They might be good for skin health, but as far as muscle building, they're practically useless because they completely lack tryptophan. Of course, if you took let's say what is it called again? If you took one of these collagen supplements and you took a separate tryptophan supplement with it, you would actually make it into a complete protein. It would be much more useful. In fact, in the 70s, they had a diet come along, which was called appropriately the Last Chance Diet. Now, the Last Chance Diet, some of you old enough might might remember this. It was way back in the 70s, the mid to late 70s. It was developed by a doctor, and the Last Chance Diet consisted of just living on a liquid amino acid supplement, no food. People were losing vast amounts of weight on it, 50, 60 pounds, because you're basically just consuming pure protein. There was no other food eaten, no carbohydrate, no fat. In fact, the popularity of the diet, in other words, the diet was so popular that one company started by selling a amino acid product called Share, C-H-E-R, Share Amino, because it was a cherry-flavored liquid amino. It was actually brought out to be used with that diet. That company was called Twinlab, and it was a major player in the supplement company for many years. But their very first product was Share Amino, which was basically targeted at people who were using the Last Chance Diet amino acid diet. Unfortunately, the amino acid, the Last Chance Diet caused a lot of problems. For one thing, it was lacking in minerals, and it caused heart rate disturbances in a lot of women that went on the diet. And also because it was based, the liquid amino acid supplements that it was based on were actually gelatin. It was actually gelatin supplements in a liquid form, which lacks tryptophan. So these liquid amino acid supplements, the early ones, the ones used in the Last Chance Diet, were incomplete proteins. They really couldn't be used by the body. So that caused still another problem. So of course it fell out of favor. You still have amino acid supplements today. Most of them, however, do include all the 9 essential amino acids, including tryptophan. Same holds true for any possible liquid amino acid supplements. Also are not, they're usually made from animal sources rather than gelatin, so they're complete proteins. Whether they're of any use for building muscle, that's another topic entirely I won't get into in this video. In this video, I wanted to discuss this new study I came across, which was a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a review of past studies where they collate this past studies. The studies could vary anywhere from 10 to 20 to 50, but they look at a bunch of past studies to try and draw a conclusion as to the worth of any particular substance or supplement or medical procedure. And it's considered one of the better scientific studies because it kind of lowers the risk of bias. In other words, people, manipulating the study to obtain a certain result. So it's considered pretty solid study. So I came across this study in a rather obscure medical journal. And so I wanted to talk about it because it's very interesting. I'll talk about the specific study in a minute, but I wanted to talk first a little about the properties of tryptophan in case for those of you who don't know. Now, another group of supplements that are currently very popular are called NAD precursors. NAD is a substance produced in the body that is pivotal in cellular energy metabolism. Some scientists like to say if all the NAD was removed from your body, you'd be dead in 6 seconds, which is probably true. Now, there's precursors for NAD that are sold. One of them is called nicotinamide riboside. The other one's called NMN. These are the two main NAD precursors. Now, I wrote an article in my Applied Metabolics. I don't want to talk about NAD precursors in this video. Suffice to say that there's a lot of nonsense being talked about or being said about these NAD precursors in relation to health and longevity. Yes, it's true that NAD levels do drop with age, and as NAD levels drop, because of the relative lack of NAD in the body, certain diseases, including brain diseases, start to become more prevalent. However, I'll let you read the article in my Applied Metabolics about why a lot of what they say about NAD precursor supplements is a fallacy, and why a certain group of people don't need to take them. But that's in my Applied Metabolics. But the point being that these NAD precursor supplements are based on niacin. Niacin itself is a B complex vitamin that is a precursor for the synthesis of NAD in the body. In other words, when you ingest the B complex vitamin niacin, your body can convert through a certain pathway, can convert niacin into NAD. The people that sell these NAD precursors say that that particular pathway is not that effective, so you can't really depend on it. This is still a matter of debate among scientists. However, tryptophan, interestingly, tryptophan is actually a precursor of niacin, of both niacin and NAD, and NAD. And tryptophan can be converted into niacin in the body. In other words, even if you have consumed no niacin foods or niacin supplements, your body can convert tryptophan that you consumed in protein foods into niacin, and the niacin can then be converted into NAD. Tryptophan itself is considered a more or less direct precursor for NAD. In other words, tryptophan can actually be converted into NAD. That's another pathway. So now there was a controversy about, again, this was years ago. A lot of you might not be old enough to remember this. And in 1989, there was a controversy because what happened was 1,500 people got very ill after consuming tryptophan supplements, and it resulted in 37 deaths. And because of that, the Food and Drug Administration, that's the watchdog federal administration that kind of is supposed to supervise supplement sales, they removed tryptophan from the market, even though tryptophan, of course, is a natural constituent of all protein foods, or most protein foods, and it's also a body chemical. They removed it because at the time they didn't know what was causing these deaths. Well, ongoing research showed, it was traced to a company, a Japanese company. You should know that a lot of the amino acids that are sold on the commercial market are made by Japanese and lately Chinese companies. Most of your amino acids come from China these days, and same with also it used to be Japan, now it's China. But in 1989, most of the amino acids sold, whether singular amino acids or amino acid supplements themselves, were manufactured by companies in China. One of them is called Showa Denko. Now, in order to make a greater profit, typically, these corporations, they're greedy, they want to make more money. So what happened is Showa Denko changed its filtering process because amino acids are made from a fermentation process involving bacteria. They have to use certain screens to purify the resulting amino acids. And what happened was Showa Denko decided to shorten the process by changing the way the tryptophan was purified, and this led to a contaminant forming in the tryptophan supplements that were sold to the United States and other countries. And eventually it was found that the contaminant, they called it originally, was called Peak X. It was later identified as something else, but this was the actual cause of the disease called eosinophilia myalgia, or EOS, that caused these serious health problems. Once it was realized that the problem, this health problem, was actually caused by a contaminant in tryptophan rather than tryptophan itself. Of course, the interesting thing about this story is that while tryptophan supplements were banned right after 1989 or 1990 by the FDA because of this eosinophilia myalgia syndrome, they were still left in baby food. So in other words, the FDA was saying that tryptophan in baby food was safe, but it wasn't safe for adults to take a tryptophan supplement. So you figure it out, I can't. But anyway, once it was realized that it was this contaminant in tryptophan rather than tryptophan, the FDA lifted the ban on tryptophan supplements in 2005. So tryptophan supplements are available today. Now, why would you take singular tryptophan rather than, let's say, a multi-amino acid or something like that? Tryptophan, one of the main features of tryptophan is that it's the direct precursor for important brain neurotransmitter called serotonin. Serotonin is involved in feelings of relaxation, restfulness. It's also converted into melatonin in the brain, in the pineal gland. So in other words, serotonin is a neurotransmitter associated with relaxation and sleep, and tryptophan is the immediate precursor. In fact, that's why a lot of people will tell you if you want to have something that will help you sleep easier, take a tryptophan supplement with carbohydrate, because the carbohydrate you consume, this is about an hour before sleep, the carbohydrate will clear, because of the insulin release, will clear out all the circulating amino acids that compete with tryptophan uptake into the brain, except for tryptophan. Tryptophan is carried in the blood, attached to a protein called albumin and also free fatty acids. When you clear out the other amino acids, the tryptophan, you cleared out the amino acids because of consuming with carbohydrate, the tryptophan now has clear entry into the brain. Once in the brain, two enzymes will convert it right into serotonin, and then into melatonin, but the serotonin itself will help you sleep. So that's a little trick. What else? This also is useful. I came across some research a couple of years ago. You might have heard of something called roid rage, where supposedly bodybuilders, athletes, or others who take fairly large doses of anabolic steroids, it affects brain neurotransmitter balance, where they tend to become too low in serotonin. Now, serotonin is a relaxing neurotransmitter, and it kind of offsets feelings of anger. And fish oil, by the way, also increases serotonin because it has something to do with serotonin receptors. That's another story. But to make a long story short, I came across research suggesting that people who have problems with mental issues when they're taking anabolic steroids, such as increased anger, that type of thing, inability to relax, if they supplement with tryptophan, because it'll be converted into serotonin, it can actually neutralize a lot of those feelings of rage. I wrote that years ago. Also, tryptophan, when you take it, I remember I mentioned just now that it's converted by two enzymes. Well, it's first converted to a substance called 5-HTP. 5-HTP is then converted into serotonin. In other words, 5-HTP is a more direct precursor of serotonin. It's also sold in supplement form. Studies have shown that taking supplements of 5-HTP can actually reduce the craving for carbohydrates, which is that's a good idea for people that are on ketogenic or low-carb diets. But be aware that because 5-HTP is a precursor for serotonin and melatonin, if you take too much, you'll be very sleepy, and it'll be difficult, for example, to want to work out when instead you want to go down and you want to lay down and have a nap. So what else can I say about that? Well, let's get to the study. What the study showed, let me bring it up so I can directly read it to you. This study was a systematic review and meta-analysis. It was data from studies reporting the relationship between tryptophan and cardiovascular disease over the past 21 years. It included 34,370 individuals. That's one of the great things about meta-analysis, because one of the problems with many studies, it doesn't include enough study subjects, so it's hard to draw a conclusion. The more study subjects you have, the greater chance of drawing a realistic conclusion about anything you're studying. So this meta-analysis had 34,370 people. The cardiovascular diseases included in the study were coronary artery disease, heart failure, peripheral artery disease. Current evidence suggests that there is a decrease in plasma tryptophan concentrations in cardiovascular disease patients. Tryptophan is also negatively associated with cardiovascular events. A reduction in circulating tryptophan levels may serve as a significant predictor of adverse outcomes in patients with cardiovascular disease. Now, what is it about tryptophan that causes the cardiovascular effects? It has to do with the metabolic pathways of tryptophan, particularly one called the kynurenine, I have to pronounce this right, kynurenine pathway. When this stuff accumulates, kynurenine, it basically activates activities in the body, I should say, that cause inflammation that is related to cardiovascular disease. In other words, the inflammation, the decreased levels of tryptophan increase what they call inflammatory cytokines, which are proteins produced by the immune system, which increases a enzyme called 2,3 dioxygenase, and that decreases the levels of tryptophan. So there it is. So basically, a recent prospective cohort study suggested that increased dietary intake of aromatic amino acids, such as tryptophan, was associated with reduced risk of cardiovascular disease mortality over 20 years of follow-up. So that basically it. In other words, not having enough tryptophan, apparently what it boils down to is it increases inflammatory processes within blood vessels that favor the development of cardiovascular disease. So what should we do about tryptophan? Well, if you want to use isolated tryptophan supplements as a sleep inducer, that's great. It's not going to cause any amino acid imbalances. It's not going to interfere with muscle protein synthesis. I myself, as part of my so-called sleep stack, and what I mean by stack is I take several natural items to help me fall asleep. I have very, very bad case of insomnia. I've had it for many years, and I take 500 milligrams of tryptophan about an hour before I want to go to sleep, because it takes about that much time for the tryptophan to be converted, and I do take it with a little bit of carbohydrate to ensure that the tryptophan gets into the brain, which is where I want it to be, so it can be converted into serotonin and then melatonin and then help me sleep. Besides that, I also take a 3 milligram time-release melatonin to ensure that I get the melatonin just in case the tryptophan doesn't work. So you could do that. But if you're eating high-quality protein foods, such as meat, fish, eggs, all that stuff, you don't have to really worry about tryptophan. You'll be getting enough. So the odds of let's say the branched chain amino acids blocking tryptophan uptake, it's not really a serious problem, really. And I mean, years ago, they came out with this theory that in long distance runners, they were like eating a lot of carbohydrates to load their glycogen levels before a race, and they unknowingly, because of this high carbohydrate intake, they were increasing the entry of tryptophan into the brain. So what would happen is supposedly this led to feelings of fatigue and tiredness while they were running or even before the run, and they thought it was because of increased tryptophan entry into the brain, which was converted to serotonin, caused these relaxation feelings. And the antidote was to provide large amounts of branched chain amino acids, which would block the tryptophan. Or anyway, to make a long story short, this theory has fallen out of favor. They know it doesn't really happen. In other words, the tryptophan, the runners who have the carbohydrate, they're not going to have excess tryptophan in the brain, and they don't have to load up on branched chain amino acids to block tryptophan. So just consume regular protein foods, and you'll probably get plenty of tryptophan. You don't have to worry about it. But I think I did this video because I thought it was interesting, because I myself wasn't aware of the role that tryptophan played. I knew about these other aspects of tryptophan, such as the serotonin synthesis, the relaxation effect, the NAD effect, but I wasn't aware that tryptophan actually can offer preventive effects against the advent of cardiovascular disease. And there's one other thing you should know. I can't tell you where I found this, but there was a study showing that as people tend to get older, they tend to produce more of those adverse tryptophan metabolites, like kynurenine, that kind of stuff, that can cause, like I say, medical problems. So, if you're over 40, it's especially important to ensure that you consume enough tryptophan. But again, just eat protein foods, you should be fine. And I'll leave it at that. If you want more information about nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, ergogenic aids, hormone therapy, supplement science, including which ones work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, I cover more topics in applied topics in applied metabolics than any other digital publication by far. It's 20 to 45 pages every month. There's no ads. There's no advertisements. I'm not trying to push any products on you. I'm not associated with any supplement companies, unlike 98% of people that post YouTube videos that have highly profitable associations with supplement companies. They're basically shills for supplement companies, and they're going to push the supplements on you. I don't do that. You notice when I spoke about supplements like tryptophan, I don't mention any commercial companies because I'm not a shill for supplement companies. I'm just trying to give you solid evidence-based information, both in my videos and in my applied metabolics. My applied metabolics is for those who really want the in-depth information, who want to know kind of under the hood stuff. And the topics that I cover at applied metabolics are off the road topics. They're not the same stuff you'll see in online blogs and YouTube videos. This is stuff that's highly relevant, highly practical, but is not very rarely, if ever, discussed in other let's say by other people or in other parts of the internet. And this is only in applied metabolics. It takes advantage of my 60 years of both research and writing experience. I have well over 11,000 articles published. I wrote for major bodybuilding magazines for about 15 years. So I've been a professional writer. I know how to communicate to the public. It's very readable. Applied Metabolics is written in magazine style. Anybody with even an average intelligence will be able to fully understand it. And you will learn something, and it will be quite useful to you. Some of the material I cover in Applied Metabolics can actually prove life-saving, and I'm not exaggerating. It can prove life-saving as well as saving you a lot of money. So subscribe today. It's at www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you a personal invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and medicine and general health. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics website where current subscribers only can send me short questions about anything they read in Applied Metabolics or anything that they're curious about that's related to nutrition and exercise, and I'll answer them in appreciation for their subscription to Applied Metabolics. This only applies to current subscribers. So I think that's about it, really. If you think my videos, like this one, are of any use, please feel free to subscribe. It doesn't cost you 1 red cent. I post new videos. By the way, my Applied Metabolics is not expensive at all. It costs 33 cents a day. The current iteration of the Los Angeles Times, which is the local newspaper here in Los Angeles, each daily issue costs $3.66. So it's what is it? It's over 10 times the price of what am I talking about? It's 100 times the price of each issue of Applied Metabolics. And Applied Metabolics is much more useful than the LA Times. The LA Times is actually about 4 pages now. I don't know who's buying it, but anyway, it used to be a great newspaper. But anyway, I'm off on a tangent. I shouldn't do that. There's too many other people doing that. But so I'll leave it at that. Subscribe today to Applied Metabolics. Subscribe to my channel here. Please let others know about the channel. Hopefully both of these things will be very useful to you. And if you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter and get a dog. I'm right now in a quandary because I just looked at a bunch of puppies, and they were just painfully cute. I mean, they were so cute. They were jumping all over me. And but see, my thing is I've always had middle-aged to older dogs. I've never had a puppy, and quite frankly, I don't know if I could handle a puppy. You got to train them. You got to walk them every 2 hours. I mean, I don't know if I can handle that. As much as I'd love to have a puppy, I kind of like the maturity and the calmness associated with middle-aged to older dogs. So I'm going to have to make up my mind the next couple of days, but hopefully I will, and I'll have another dog when I'll show it to you in my coming videos. Thank you for listening.